Did you know that you can cool an entire building without having to use air conditioning system? Check this out. So, if you have a building that needs to be cooled down, normally what we do is that we use air conditioning system, which consume energy, a lot of energy. Actually, in warm climates, we use up to 80% of the energy consumption goes to our cooling system. So there's a natural way of doing this by using nature-based solutions where you use zero energy. And the way it works is that you create cooling tunnels underneath the building, for example. And these tunnels are actually a technology that was invented 700 years ago by ancient civilizations. And they actually still exist today and work. And the way they work is that during summer, when it's really hot and the sun is shining, the outside temperature, the air, is really warm. So what you want to do is you want to create a cooling system where the hot air gets sucked into this cooling tunnel, no? And this hot air will travel underneath the ground. And when you come about 3 to 4 meters under the ground, the temperatures are naturally cool. So when this hot air comes and reaches 3, 4 meters, and then have to travel about 6 meters under the ground, it starts naturally cooling down the temperature. So by the moment it reaches inside, it's already cooled down. And you can cool down the air by almost 12 degrees. That's a lot of energy you can save. So we learned this by studying ancient civilizations around the world. And there's a city in Iran called Yazd that have this, and it's still working today without any maintenance. It's all just based on physics. So instead of using fossil fuel to cool down buildings, we can use physics. So I also want to show you how this can be done on a larger scale, on a city level, because that's how the ancient people used to do it. And what they would do was they would build these giant cooling towers called badgir in Persian. So they would build these towers that basically would catch the air. And they would have these openings inside the towers. And the reason they did this was because when you go higher up, the air is already naturally cooler. It's a cooler breeze. So they would have the hot air that's already cooler than the air down here, and they would trap it. They would trap it inside these towers, and then the air would get sucked down here. And then what they would do is that their cooling tunnels would be much bigger. And they would actually, because they were in the desert, they would go almost all the way to the groundwater table, which is where the water is. So they would dig down to the water level under the ground. Why? Because water under the ground is very cool. So then this hot air, by the time it reached down here, it would become cool. Now, what they would do is that they would distribute this to all their buildings around the city. So not only one building, but for many buildings, they would do that. So they would just distribute these cooling tunnels coming to different buildings. And that way, they could cool down many buildings at the same time. And that would basically save a lot of energy for the entire community. So this way, all these buildings are being cooled down simply by one cooling towers. And with one cooling towers, they could almost cool down hundreds of buildings, right? So this is the way to cool down buildings without having to use any fossil fuel at all. And what we did was that we started implementing this in our buildings the first time in warm climates. And we were just completely blown away how good they were working. And then we came to the understanding that this can also be used for ventilating buildings. It's not only for cooling buildings. So today, we're doing this in all our buildings, no matter what climate we're in. So I will show you, for example, in a climate that is cold, where you need the ventilation. So here is a section of how a building can look like. And you have in the front, you have where the sun will shine. This would be the sunny side of the building. And this would be your living area. And in the front of your living area, we normally put a greenhouse. And I will explain why. There's a key element to the greenhouse. So in this building, where this is basically where you live, your happy life, this is your house, and this is your greenhouse. This is where you have your plants. So what we do, no matter if it's a warm or cold climate, is that we integrate the cooling tunnel that I just explained you behind the building, because all of this here is earth. So we integrate the building into the landscape. So what we do is that we place the cooling tunnel inside of this berm, inside of this hill. So then we have the hot air blowing, the wind coming into this tunnel. And by the time this air passes by here, it reaches inside the building with a cool temperature. And then what we do is, in between your living area and the greenhouse, we have these operable windows in the top. So this air will travel through your living area into your greenhouse. And then inside of your greenhouse, we normally put skylights so the air can come out from here. Now, with this system, we're able to create a natural convection throughout the building without using any fans or any mechanical components. Basically, the way it works is that we just open the skylight here, and we open the lid of the cooling tunnel here, and then you naturally get a convection happening throughout your building. And this way, you can both cool the building, but you can also ventilate it. So if you would like to learn more about how to use nature-based solutions to cool down your building without having to use any air conditioning system, and how to ventilate your building completely naturally, then join our online academy and learn more. You will find the link below here.